hello everybody. My name is Marley Bird and you are here for the second section of the Tournament of Stitches event. This is a yearly event hosted on marleybird.com where we bring together knitters and crocheters to complete a mystery make-along. This year we are making a throw blanket or a pillow. You just don't really know what it's going to look like in the end. If you've not joined in with the Tournament of Stitches as of yet, it is not too late. You can join at any time during the event or after the event. Simply watch video 1, complete the first week's homework, and then join me here for video 2 and you'll be able to jump in without any issues. Now, just like I have mentioned before, we are working on a class project throughout this entire event. So for the class project, you will always use the same technique that we talked about in video 1, okay? So the video 1 technique you used for your homework of section 1 is going to be the same technique you will use for your homework on section 2. Now you might be asking yourself, well, what does that have to do with a Tournament of Stitches? We're supposed to be learning a lot of new stuff. Well, that's exactly what I'm about to do. For each week's instructions, after I give you the section instructions for your class project, I will teach you a new technique. So this week we are moving on to learn a new technique to complete the class project in a different way. You know, what do they say? There's always like different ways to skin a cat. Well, there's lots of different ways to knit or crochet a blanket. So we're going to take the concept of this very same pattern overall look, but we're going to change the technique used to complete that pattern. What this ultimately is going to do is give you a bunch of skills and tools to add to your toolbox to help you become a better knitter or crocheter. That's my goal throughout this entire event. Okay, go ahead, grab your section 1 homework, and let's go ahead and learn what you need to do for section 2, and then you're going to learn a brand new technique. Here we go. Well, hello there, crocheters. Are you ready to continue on with your Tournament of Stitches class project? I know I am. I've been working diligently on my squares for my pillow, and I've already started on the squares for this section. That way I can very easily just show you how we're going to accomplish our squares actually leaning the opposite direction or having the illusion of tilting the other way. Maybe those aren't even the right words. Let me show you what I mean. All right, if you look down here, you can see that I have worked pretty well here on mine. And I do want to point out, yes, my middle square is absolutely wrong as far as my color. That's why I have a little pin there to remind myself. You all pointed it out in the last video. I should have used this dark pink. I don't know why I grabbed white in my head. I needed to grab the white, but whatever, it is what it is. So what I'm doing is I am making sure that that middle color on my sections is going to be the same. All right, so if you take a look here, ignore these 4, okay? These are the 9 squares or blocks you completed for section 1 of the Tournament of Stitches. Each of these lean towards the left. If you're right-handed, they lean towards the right if you're left-handed, okay? Now, over here, what you're going to notice is that we're going to do the next set of 9 blocks, and these lean towards the right for right-handed and to the left for left-handed. So we're going to get this illusion of kind of going away from each other. The thing here is technique-wise, it's all going to be the same. We're still going to carry our floats on the wrong side. We're still going to attach over here to our edge on the right side. Everything like that looks good. What might be a little bit hard for you to visualize is how do you carry those floats? It's just like we did the other one with just like a little bit of a tweak because our colors are in a different place. So what I'm going to do is I will show you how to do this square right here. So this would be block number 12. So this is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then 15 would be on 12. I'm going to get you started on 12 because everything you need to know to complete these 9 squares is going to be right here in this little square right here. And once you're done, you're going to have essentially half of your project completed, which is really kind of cool, right? With the exception of the border or the back of your pillow. So what we want to do here is we're going to follow the instructions for section 2 of the Tournament of Stitches class project. What that means, once again, is that during the class project, we will continue to use this same technique throughout the entire project. However, each week from this week forward, I'm going to show you some different techniques to make squares similar to these that you could use in place of all of this. So I'm not telling you to use the 2-color crochet square motif technique on this class project. I'm telling you, hey, I'm going to show you another technique that you could make another project with, or just stick it in your crocheter's toolbox. Does that make sense? I think a lot of people were a little bit confused about that. They were like, what's happening? Most of you are people who've joined in with previous Tournament of Stitches where you combine a bunch of stitches and stuff. Remember what I said, this one, I wanted to keep it very easy, very routine, very consistent, so that way you didn't have to learn a whole bunch of new stuff each week if you didn't want to. You can go at your own pace, and we can get a beautiful project at the end, and at the same time, spice up our knowledge of crochet and knitting. All right, guys? So let's go ahead, grab your colors that you're using for your square number 12, if that's where you are, or just sit back, enjoy the show, and let me show you how this works. Then we're gonna jump in and learn a new technique. One of the beautiful things about this pattern is that in this section, we're doing a mirror image of what we've already completed. So if I fold over the 4 squares I just completed of section 2, you'll see it's a mirror image of what's underneath. So if you're ever in doubt of what color comes next, you could always just fold your work over and be like, oh, all right, so I have to use these 2 colors over here next. So when I fold this up, I know where I'm going. So this particular square, square number 12 or block number 12, is a repeat of block number 10. So by showing you block 12, I'm actually repeating block 10, so you can start off with block 10 and this will all work out. Get the color that you're going to use, and in the bottom right hand corner, we're going to join with a slip stitch, okay? So we want to join that color. Okay, as I was editing the video, I found a mistake that I made, so I'm redoing this portion of the video. Go ahead and grab the color you're supposed to be joining with at this bottom corner, and you will join with a slip stitch or a slip knot, right? This will leave that color loop on your hook and your color ready to work. Now, if I do a chain 1 with this same color, that leaves that remaining pink on my hook. And then as I continue on with my next color, I'm going to have the wrong color on the top of my chain. So just as we did in the first section where we had to change colors in the chain, I'm going to come back here. I will undo that chain 1 I just did. All right, I undid the chain 1. And when I complete this chain 1, I need to do it using my second color. So I will yarn over and pull through with my second color. That gives me the chain 1 in my pink, and I have my gray on my hook, and I can complete my 10 chains in my gray. Okay, now that I have that completed, I'm going to work back along these chains, and I will work the same color stitch in each one of these chains all the way down here. And when I get to this pink one, I'm going to join it to the finished square over here with my single crochet 2 together. Don't be confused by that slip stitch looking like a chain. Once that is woven in and kind of pulled in, it doesn't appear as a chain anymore. So I'm going to single crochet in my second chain from hook, and then each chain all the way across. Now, right here, I've just did my 9 grays, right? So my next stitch is this pink, but I have a gray loop on my hook. I don't want that, so I'm going to go ahead and undo that last single crochet. And this is where I'm going to change color. So I drop my gray, pick up my pink, and I'll bring my pink over to yarn over and draw through those 2. Now, as I am working into this pink chain, I will go into the chain, and I want to make sure that I'm not only picking up the chain, but I'm picking up the float, just like I did before, okay? Yarn over, pull up a loop, And now I need to go to the end of this single crochet row from the finished block, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all three, right? That's my join. Make sure I go and I work my slip stitch on the next portion up. Now, if you're a fan of the stitch markers, like I am, that we used in section 1, you can go ahead and mark this entire row right here. You can mark this entire row with your stitch markers again to make sure that you know exactly where you're joining. Maybe by this point you're so used to it you don't need those stitch markers anymore, which is just fine. You don't need to do that. But from here on out, it's very similar to what we just did. It's just our color changes are on the opposite side. So let me go down this wrong side row now and show you how you would change your color on the wrong side. Once you have finished your slip stitch, you will turn your work. And working back, we know that this first stitch has to be pink and the second stitch has to be pink. So we will make sure we do not work into the slip stitch. We'll go into the second stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. And we know this one has to be pink, but we also want to make sure that we are working over top of that gray. So I'm going to take the gray and rest it right on top of my hook. All right, I'm going to hold it over. And then when I go into the gray stitch, you see how now I have the stitch and what will be the float on top of my hook? Yarn over with my pink, pull up a loop. Now I want to pull through with my gray, so I'm going to bring my pink forward towards me because this is my wrong side. All right, bring my pink forward towards me, grab my gray, yarn over, and pull up a loop, right? Now I'm going to leave the pink just hanging out there. I don't do anything else with it. And I finish the row with my gray. I'll show you how to do those color changes one more time. So let me get to the end of the row, turn around and come back. Chain 1, turn. Remember, we're going to stop 2 stitches before the color change. This would be the second stitch before my color change. So I'll go into this stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. I'm going to drop my gray, pick up my pink, yarn over with my pink and pull through. Now as I go into the next gray stitch and I insert my hook, I'm going through the gray stitch and I have the pink float on there. I yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, and I have officially moved one of my stitches over. I'll do a single crochet in the next one, and the last one here is my single crochet 2 together. So I go into the stitch, pull up a loop. Make sure you go into the next row up on your finished block, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3, and then don't forget the slip stitch on the next one up. Oop. If you can do it without having everything fall. All right. This looks really good. Okay, so you can see on these here, I've done this same technique. So this is the wrong side. This is the right side, and you can tell I'm using black. So I made sure that I was not demonstrating these blocks with black on camera. You're welcome, because you wouldn't be able to see anything. But I think that knowing now how you manage the colors here, and knowing that you're just shifting those colors, you just go in the opposite direction, you should be just fine getting through this entire section. All right, how do you feel? So far, so good. I love this crochet intarsia block technique. I think it's a lot of fun. Now you have a really good grasp of how to do crochet intarsia, which is lovely. As we move on over the next 2 weeks and you complete the body of your project, it's gonna be like, wow, this is just really cool. In week 4, I'm actually gonna have a discussion about where I came up with this design and the influence for it. So I'm excited to share that with you, but not yet. All right, so now that we have established what you need to do for section 2 on your actual class project, why don't we learn something new, huh? Let's learn a new technique. This is called the 2-color crochet square motif. And we're essentially doing it's not granny sets, but it's a granny square. It's a motif that we're going to use a color for each half to give it this triangular look, bisecting the square. It'll make more sense as we go to it. So let's go ahead, grab those instructions for the 2-color crochet square motif. They are available in the same location that you got the instructions for this section 2. I've put a link in the video description box below. While you're down there, please smash that like button. I would love for you to do that. And then join me back here with some scrap yarn and let's learn a new technique. Let's jump up our crochet knowledge a little bit and learn a new way to make a 2-color square or a 2-color block. This is a 2-color crochet square motif. And this motif is very easy to make. It's just constructed of double crochets. It's all about how you change colors. Now the fun thing here is because I love join as you go, I do give you instructions for 2 different ways to join the squares as you go on the final round. So you have a choice of making all the squares the same way as the first square we're going to make and just seam them up later. Or you can make the first square and then all of the subsequent squares, you'll make them up to a point of where you will join, and I'll show you how to do these super cool joining techniques. You can choose which one you want to use, whether it's seaming or joining technique number 1 or joining technique number 2. Totally up to you. All of it works. You know that I am not going to judge you in any way. So let's go ahead and dive in with the pattern itself. Just a reminder, it's available at the same location you got the instructions for the Tournament of Stitches overall, and it's just below the week 2 section 2 instructions. So the link is in the video description box right down there below. All right. First thing I want to point out about this is it has a lovely stitch diagram. I love myself a good stitch diagram, especially when it shows up in 2 different colors, as we're going to use 2 colors. Like, it gives a very good explanation of where you should change colors just solely looking at the stitch diagram. This motif is made in the round, so you will start reading the diagram right here in the center, and we will work around. It is on this final 5th round on all the subsequent squares that you will work the join that I will show you later on. So let's go ahead and we're going to get started with this square. Let's get it complete and then I'll show you the joins. All right, so let's grab some scrap yarn and jump in. You know what, just real quick before we jump in, let me mention that this square can be used in place of the square technique that we are using for the class project. Meaning if you wanted to use this square and make an entire new pillow or a new throw using the layout or schematic for the class project, you absolutely could. That's how I wrote the pattern out. Now you will notice that the full pattern is not there yet, and that's because I don't want to spoil it for the class project. So once the class project is complete, the full pattern for this square technique for that same pattern will be released as well. And what that totally means here is that you can use the schematic right now that is available. So this would be section 1 and section 2. You can work this entire schematic for your throw or for your pillow with this technique. So you could start off with block number 1 and then go on to block number 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. That way, if you're choosing colors and trying to decide what you can do with it, you can make what we're making. Does that make sense? All right. Okay. Let's go ahead. We are going to start off with an adjustable ring. And for me, I make an adjustable ring just as I make a slip knot. I take the tail and put it in the palm of my hand, take my working yarn, wrap it around my forefinger and middle finger, and I come back up. Then I cross over, rotate my hand, and it keeps that cross there, okay? So I rotate my hand, take my hook, if I go underneath this front loop, grab that back loop and pull it out. The space that my fingers are occupying right there, that is the space I want to leave open for my adjustable ring. So I'm going to essentially, where that crossover is that I told you to make sure you keep, I want you to pinch it. So I've just taken my fingers out. You notice I have not allowed that space where my fingers were. I have not allowed it to close. This is the crossover that we created. I'm just pinching it. So I'm leaving that big space open so that way we can work into it, okay? Make sense so far? All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to chain 3. So chain 1, 2, and 3, and that counts as a double crochet. Now I'm going to put 2 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet in the ring. So I'm going to do 2 double crochet. So I yarn over my hook, go into the ring, yarn over my hook, pull through 2, yarn over my hook, pull through 2. So there's 1, and here's 2. So it's 2 double crochet, chain 1, and then 3 double crochet. Oops, make sure you go into the ring. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now it says change to color E, the second color. So we're going to change to color E. The thing here is on this last pull through, I'm going to change my color in that pull through. So I just completed that double crochet, but I'm going to undo it just down to that last pull through. So I'm going to go back to where I have 2 loops on my hook. So that way I can change to my next color, which I'm going to use this dragon fruit color. I'm going to pick it up, yarn over my hook, and draw through 2 loops on my hook. This is just like any other color change, all right? Now I'm going to chain 1 with my color E, and I'm going to do 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and then 3 double crochet. 1. Oop, my yarn is like creeping up on me, huh? Let's make sure it's out of the way here. 2 and 3. So I should have 6 double crochet with my pink color. And I do. I have 6 double crochet, or 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. All right, you with me so much or so far? Now that we have verified we have the correct number of stitches, we want to finish with the single crochet into the top of this first chain 3, and that will count as a chain 1 space. So it's at this point that I like to pull my ring close so that way I can easily get to that. So all you do is you go to the tail right here, and this is always like magic to me, and you just start to pull on the tail, and it tightens up that ring that we've been working into, tightens all the stitches up, makes it easier for us to get over here to that stitch we're supposed to do a single crochet into. Let me get over there for you. So here is my initial chain 3. So I'm going to put a single crochet into the 3rd chain of that chain 3. And this single crochet is going to count as a chain 1 space, all right? It just makes it so that my loop is right here in the center here, and that's where I want it to be. So I know this doesn't look like a square much yet. It looks a little bit circular, but wherever my chain 1s are, or where that single crochet, that chain 1, that's where the corners of my square are, okay? So we've already created that. One thing about this square motif that is different than many other motifs you might have made is that we are going to work in the round, but we're going to turn our work each round. It's not just one big spiral. So I will turn my work, and I start off with a stacked double crochet, and I place that stacked double crochet right around that single crochet I just completed. So I will go into that space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. Now I'm going to take my hook, and I'm essentially going to place it between those 2 loops that I just drew through. I'm going to take my hook and just pierce right between those and go right into the center of that stitch I just did. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. That's a stacked double crochet. I'll place another double crochet into this chain 1 space, and then a double crochet into each double crochet over to the next chain 1 space, which is my corner. Whenever you get to the corners, you're going to do the same sort of stitches, set of stitches. So you will place 2 double crochet in the chain 1 space. So here's 1 and 2, chain 1, and then do 2 more double crochet. Now we didn't have to change colors yet because this half of our square is going to be pink, so we're just using pink. But as I come over here to this corner where the 2 colors are down here waiting, right? So this is where I changed colors before, and here's where the other color is waiting. I'm going to change colors when I get to this corner. So I will work double crochets over to that corner. So there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. Now in this space, I'm going to place 2 double crochets with my pink, and then I will chain 1 and do 2 double crochets with my orange, which means I have to change colors in my second draw through of my second double crochet. All right. So I'm going to yarn over my hook, go into that chain 1 space, do the first double crochet. So there's the first one, and here's the second one, and this is where I will change colors. So I yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, drop my yarn, pick up this color, right? Yarn over and draw through 2. Now I want you to see this. See how that gives me that float there? I want to make sure that we are hiding that float. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to hide that float, all right? We're going to do our chain 1, and we're going to do a double crochet now, right? We have to do double crochets in this orange color into this chain 1 space. I want to make sure that I'm pulling that float over, and when I go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, so I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to make sure that I have that float pulled over here also. I'm going to pull it up like it's on my hook, yarn over, and draw through 2. So what I really did is I pulled up that float, pulled it up out of the way, and then I can do another double crochet. I'm just trying to hide the float so that it's not visible, okay? Now I'll go ahead and I'll finish my round with my orange, and I do that with double crochets into the top of each double. So there's 1 and 2 and 3. I'm to the next corner. So every time I'm in a corner, I want to do 2 doubles, chain 1, 2 doubles. So there's 1 and 2, chain 1, 1 and 2. Now I will work my double crochets over to the next corner. So there's 1, 2, I have 1 more here. Here's my third. In the same chain 1 space we started with, I'm going to do 2 double crochets. So there's 1 and 2. And then just like before, in the top of this first stitch, before it was a chain, this one it's the stacked double crochet. I'm going to place a single crochet into that stacked double crochet. All right? And that counts as my chain 1 space. So that's 1/2 of my granny 2 circle, I hate calling it granny, my 2 color square motif, crochet square motif. So once again, I'm going to turn my work, right? I'm going to turn my work. And once again, I'm going to start with a stacked double crochet. So I do not yarn over. And look at this placement. So you have 1 loop on your hook. You go into the space, yarn over, pull up a loop. So I have 2 loops there, right? When I go to make the stitch that's on top of this one, I want to put my hook between those 2 loops, all right? So I'm going to yarn over, draw through those 2 loops, take my hook, put it between those 2 loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. That's a stacked double crochet. Yarn over, go into that same space, and complete a double. So now we're going to do all this again, only now we're with our orange color. So I'll do all of these doubles in the top of each double crochet over to the next corner. And in the next corner, I'll work my corner stitch, which is 2 doubles, chain 1, 2 doubles. And you'll notice you don't have to change colors in this corner, right? Everything is all the same color, so we don't have to do any color changes. That only happens on the 3rd corner of this project. So this would be like the second corner, because we start with the first. Chain 1. All right, so now I'm going to work my way across to the next corner, and it's in that corner I will change colors again. So I'm going to show you how to change colors. Here's my chain 1 space, and this is a corner, but I'm also changing colors here. So as I complete my second double crochet with my orange, I do want to make sure my final pull through is with my pink. So I will do 2 double crochets with my orange. So there's the first one, and it's this second one I need to bring up. So there's 1, yarn over, draw through 2, I'll drop the orange, pick up the pink, bring it up, pull through. Now I have this float, so I'm going to make sure I hide that float, all right? So here's how I'm going to hide the float. I yarn over and pull through, so there's my chain 1. So as I do my next 2 double crochet, I'm going to come over here and do the first one, yarn over, pull through, and it's on this one, I pick up my float and I put it on my hook. You see how it looks like I have 3 loops on my hook? And I'll yarn over and draw through all 3. All right, the hardest part there is that the chain 1 kind of disappears a little bit, but as long as you're putting your stitches there in that corner, it'll be just fine. But for me, I thought that was a good way to hide your float. I'm curious, for those of you who have done a lot of Grafgans or different types of work with color work, do you have a preferred method of hiding your floats? If you do, leave me a comment below. I'm always trying to learn new things, and I absolutely believe we learn best as a community. So I would love to know how you hide your floats, all right? So leave me a comment. Definitely would like to know. As I'm just working around, the easiest part about these squares is first off, they're just double crochets, right? I mean, with the exception of those stack stitches, which are brilliant. I love them so very much. They just look really great when you're working something like this, but it's just double crochets. The most complex part to this, I think, is just the color changes. But once you get going, it's like, all right, I can do this all day long. Like, you don't have to really think too much. So it's definitely a good relaxing sort of project. And as I mentioned before, you can make these squares individual or you can join them as you go. So I want to show you how to do a join as you go method. I'm going to get over here to this corner, because remember, when we start off these rounds, the first set of double crochets we do, that's like half of that corner. So as we come back to the corner, this is where we do our next set. So we would do our 2 doubles. So there's 1 and 2. And then you'd finish with a single crochet into the top of that stacked double crochet. Just like so. And then turn. But right there, that's your 2 color. I'm going to extend that out and just pull it down so you can see. Look how cool that is. And that's just a couple rounds, but you get the triangle look, right? That's the look we're going for. And by making all of these squares with those triangles, there's a variety of ways you can place them together. So as I mentioned, you can follow along with the schematic of what we're doing for this class project and use this technique instead. It's totally acceptable. I would not combine the 2 techniques. I'd keep them separate, but you absolutely could do that, all right? You can make these squares individual or you can do a join as you go. Now, I have 2 different join as you go methods that you can work up that I think are a lot of fun to do, and I want to show you how to do that. So I'm going to whip up another block and I'm going to just show you after a round 3 how to do the join as you go, because you could do it on any round, and let me show you how to do these. Sound good? All right. The first technique I will show you to join these 2 squares together results in a candy cane sort of look. It sort of twines the colors together. It's hard to explain. Let me just show you how it's done and you can see the results for yourself. Right down here, I already have 2 different squares. This is the one we completed together, and I'm at the final round of this one. And if I'm following along with my color chart, let's just imagine that this was my number 1, and this is going to be my number 2. So automatically, I know I want to have my diagonal go this direction, right? If it was over here, I'd want my diagonal to go that direction. But we want my diagonal this way. So as I'm finishing up this square and I'm going to join it to this one, I want to make sure that I'm joining it with the diagonal going this way. So as I get to where it's my color change corner, this is where I will be changing color, and at the same time, I will be looping my loop from my hook through the stitches or the space over here on this one. Seems confusing. Let me just show you how to do it without doing a whole lot of talking, because I feel like that's really going to be the best way for you to see how this works. All right, so I'm going to be quiet here. I'm just going to go through the motion and let you see how this is done. You would go ahead and continue on working in this method until you get to the end of the round, and then you would cut your yarn, weave in your ends, and your piece is joined. You can see here it gives a really cool candy cane look. It's a little tricky here at the start, especially as you're trying to tuck in your float, but once you get going, it looks pretty cool. Now, if you're not a fan of that method and you don't want to seam it together, let me show you one more method that's similar to this but gives a slightly different look. I'm going to rip out this and use the same work to do this second join. All right, let's do this. Whereas the last technique had us remove our hook and pull that loop through the chain one space or the subsequent stitches, for this one, we leave the loop on our hook and we will put our hook through these finished stitches of the finished square before we complete our stitches over here. So I'm going to be quiet and just show you how this works. The first thing we will do is join with a slip stitch right here into that corner. So that way we are joining with a slip stitch there. It takes the place of our chain one. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to complete our corners. We have to have 2 double crochets in our stitch here. And remember, we're going to hide our float. This is the most difficult part in all of it because we're trying to hide the floats at the same time. You're going to take your hook and we're going to place it in the top of the next double crochet from the chain one space on your finished square. Now you'll go ahead, yarn over your hook, insert into where you want to complete your double crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through two. If you're hiding your floats the way I do, pick up your float, yarn over, pull yarn over through the loop on your hook, through the float, through the stitch of the finished square, and through the loop on your hook, right? All right, go to the next top of the stitch from the finished square and complete the next double crochet, which again is in this corner. So we just complete our double crochet, and as we yarn over, we pull through the loop on our hook, through the stitch from the finished square, and through the loop. My friend Robin likes to call this sandwiching those stitches together. You go into the top of the next stitch on your finished square, and then you go ahead and you carry on with your pattern. Again, we're just doing our double crochets here. And if you keep doing this, you're essentially sandwiching the finished square together with your active square you're doing. And you get a really cool sort of dual look of the stitches. I'll show you here in just a minute. Obviously, it takes a little bit to get used to. Oops, if you pull the yarn and it falls out. It takes a little bit of getting used to there in the corner, but once you get along the straightaway of the square, it becomes fairly easy to manage. You'll also notice that in order to do this, I had to place the finished square to the right of the square I'm working on because I'm right-handed, and so it's easier for me to do that. Even though as I lay this down, my finished square is going to be to the left as far as layout, schematic-wise on my piece. It's easier, it's almost like it's upside down that I'm joining them together because it's easier to do. I'm at my corner just about, so I'm going to go ahead and I would just continue on working all of the stitches here in the corner. Let's see, nope, not there yet. And there you go. So you would join in this method, and what that does is it gives this color you're working on, it makes a really cool sort of slip stitch line along the edge of the finished square. And then the finished square gives this really cool slip stitch line along the edge of the square you're making. So it's just a different join. It's something fun. It's a little bit tricky, not gonna lie. Both of these squares, the joining method is a little bit tricky, but once you get through it a couple times, it becomes easier and easier. All right, that's it for me for the Tournament of Stitches section 2 and for the 2-color crochet square motif technique. You can use either of these techniques to create this really fun layout of a pattern, but remember, I do want you to continue with the technique we started with week 1 for your class project. Don't forget to share with me on social media as you're working along. Use #MarleyBird or #MarleyMadeMeDoIt so that way I can see your work and smash your like button and share with us on the Facebook group or in the Facebook group. It's so much fun to see your work. I'm just loving it so very much. I'm Marley Bird, and I will see you next week with section 3 of the Tournament of Stitches. Bye, everybody.